introduce herself further and speak with us. Our keynote speaker for today is Dr. Eleanor Wadinobi. She is the president of the Medical Women's International Association. She is the first Nigerian to attain this position in the 100-year history of the association. So Dr. Eleanor has worked on a wide range of issues, including child trafficking, girls' education, peace building, violence prevention with the African Union, DFID, ECOWAS, UNICEF, the World Bank, and many others. Our next panelist is Mrs. Doreen Owusu-Fianko, who is joining us from Ghana. She is a fellow and governing council member of the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport in Ghana. She has over 40 years experience in the aviation and tourism industry. She is currently the global vice chairperson of Women in Logistics and Transport for Northern and Western Africa. Next up, we have Mrs. Margaret Bango, who joins us from South Africa today. She is the founder of Women in Logistics and Transport South Africa. She is a retired professional nurse, a seasoned business development professional with over 30 years working in the small business sector, where she focuses on SMEs by women and youth. We also have Professor Mrs. Nenna Oti. She is the Dean, Postgraduate Studies and Chairman, Committee of Deans at the Federal University of Technology in Owerri. Professor Oti has delivered over 50 invited papers on gender issues, youth empowerment, and good governance. Our next panelist today is Mrs. Amoli Olaniyin. She's the founder of Hair Women Development. She is a certified human resources professional with over a decade of professional experience home and abroad. She's passionate about female recognition, reducing barriers, promoting female leadership, and empowering the girl child. And finally, to round up our amazing panel, we have Mrs. Womeka, who joins us from Zambia. She is a logistics and transportation professional with over 15 years experience, and she has been instrumental in many aspects of strategy development and policy approval concerning logistics and transportation in Zambia. She is well accomplished in her field. So these are the women that will be carrying on this conversation around our topic today, which is why the coronavirus pandemic demands women's leadership in socio-economic and political development sectors now and after. Conversation, I will now hand over to our host, Ambassador Kema Chikwe, to say a few words about the WLI and to shed some more light on today's topic before we take our keynote address. So if we can have a welcome.
Thank you. You're welcome to this very strategic Zoom meeting convened by the Women Leadership Institute, launched in July 2018 in Abuja. WLI is an international leadership development institution which provides a professional and non-partisan platform for women in Nigeria and across Africa to develop their leadership potentials and capacity so as to be able to take on constructive roles in the political, social, and economic development in their various nations and Africa in general. WLI runs master classes in 11 pathways covering academic as well as practical experiences in subjects relating to accelerated development. During the COVID-19 period, we have designed this meeting to motivate women in Africa to take up the challenge of providing new and effective leadership during and after the pandemic. Women excel more in times of crisis. Our objectives for this meeting also include engaging the attention of African leaders to consider the leadership of women more critical now than ever before. The outcome of the COVID-19 and its local, national, and international management will have its serious consequences on humanity in the future. For this reason, change will mandatorily occur in all sectors of development for the survival of humanity. It's a historical fact that in times of crisis, women's efforts make more impact than ever before. The coronavirus provides women opportunities to fill vacuums of leadership in the development of their nations. The confusion that now exists knows no gender barrier, and only the fittest will survive. It has been reported that the countries that have succeeded in containing the coronavirus more successfully are countries with women as heads of states. Spiritually, COVID-19 has laid a foundation for a series of revelations highlighting the capacities of women in leadership roles. Incidentally, this year, or coincidentally, this year is the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Conference, the 10th anniversary of the UN Women, and the 5th anniversary of SDG. Let's not lose sight of the fact that Gertrude Mangala of Africa from Tanzania was the convener of the Beijing Conference in 1995. So this year is the year for African women. It's the year that African women must rise up to the occasion of leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Chike. Thank you very much for that opening address. I think we can now move on to hearing from our keynote speaker, Dr. Eleanor Wadinobi.
I bring you warm greetings, dear friends. Let me start by acknowledging the shoulders on which I stand. You know, when you sit under a shade of a tree and you're enjoying the shade in the hot sun, spare a thought for those who planted the tree. I want to acknowledge the very broad shoulders that I stand on, Ambassador Kema Chikwe, a teacher, role model, and the vision bearer of the Women Leadership Institute. As we discuss today why the coronavirus pandemic demands women's leadership in socio-economic and political development sectors now and after, think about it. We have had several demarcations in history books around timelines. It's going to change. It'll change to pre, during, and COVID era. And exactly as Ambassador Kema Chikwe has said, 25 years ago, women were in Beijing. But let me borrow from Charles Dickens in the title of one of his books called The Tale of Two Cities. China symbolizes for us the tale of two cities. Beijing, where 25 years ago, the Women's World Conference was held with life-changing impact. And another city in China called Wuhan, which sadly is the place where the first reports of coronavirus were reported. Today, we are looking at socio-economic and political leadership, but nobody has to convince us that we cannot do this without looking through the health lens. Health is wealth is no longer a cliche. Everything, absolutely everything, now rotates around health. A lot of us, I have received emails, text messages, and we're all saying, I hope you are well. I hope you are safe. In fact, women are shouldering the burden of strenuous work. Does that sound familiar? Our women have been in the farms, doing back-breaking work. Not too long ago on the internet, there was a young doctor with her baby on her back in Zambia conducting surgery. And here we have women again in the midst of the coronavirus, carrying the burden, increasing their own risk of the virus. The World Economic Forum tells us that in China, 90% of the nurses and nearly half of the doctors are female. And then, when we look towards the senior leadership positions, and all of a sudden, the women are missing at the leadership positions. But women haven't just started playing a role in the front lines historically. In Nigeria, we know about the Aba women's protest, and I emphasize protest. You know, sometimes history is rewritten. A lot of the times you will find people talking about the Aba women's riot. Sadly, it was not a riot to begin with. It was a peaceful protest. But those who wanted to label women as violent inserted the word riot instead of protest. But that's a story for another day. Not too long ago, we were in the middle of the HIV and AIDS pandemic, when parents were falling to HIV and AIDS. Grandmothers stepped in because there were so many orphans. There was an issue around peace and security in Plateau State, and women marched all in black to bring peace to Plateau State in Nigeria. The world stood still in 2014 when over 200 girls were abducted in Chibok. Guess who constituted the first courageous group to go to Chibok? When the world was in denial, it was the Women, Peace and Security Network in Borno State, made up of women who risked their lives to go and investigate. Recently, there was a report in one of the states in Nigeria, in Anambra State, where the community was being ravaged by young boys who were pilfering at night, who were being violent, and the women came out and said, no more. These are our sons. We are going to set up security posts in our community, and let's see if our sons will try to kill us. And they brought peace to that community. So women have been in the front lines. A lot of us know the Liberia example. We saw the mass action for peace led by Nobel laureates Lima Bowie. What did they do? They made it very clear that they were not coming under any other banner but sisters, mothers, wives. They rallied round, they wore black, they met in a fish market, they removed all their jewelry and makeup, and they held a sex strike. And when the men were trying to discuss peace and couldn't get anywhere, they barricaded the building where the mediation was taking place and forced the men to sign that peace accord. But they didn't stop there. Post-Liberia war, they then installed themselves in strategic political positions. And soon after that, the first female president out of Liberia emerged. So what do we have now with the situation of COVID? There are challenges. We have countries, and I keep referring to Nigeria where I'm based, where communities have come out to say, yes, the virus is there, but hunger is more of an issue. So the socio-economic issues are staring us in the face, and they are asking for palliatives. There are other challenges. You have women who are locked down with their abusers. Some of these abusers are spouses, and the opportunity that going to work or leaving the house to go to the market is such that they're locked down with their abusers. And we had reports from one civil society organization alone reporting that 64%, the numbers had risen by 64% regarding the reports and calls to their hotlines. And we can go on about the issues around the COVID pandemic. So how can women take the lead, as they have done in the past? We have historically, at the top echelon of leadership, we've had 3 acting female presidents in Burundi, South Africa, and Mauritius. And we have had, to date, 4 presidents from Liberia, Malawi, Mauritius, and we have a currently serving president in Ethiopia. And just like Ambassador Chikwe told us, in the context of the coronavirus, the countries that have women in their leadership have done better. And a question was posed to Madeleine Albright regarding what her thoughts were as to why this was happening. And she said quite simply, women have peripheral vision, they're decisive, they're multitasking, they have that tendency to caregiving, and there's resilience. But this is just a keynote. I am just sounding that keynote that will now cause our conversation to be expanded. But I must leave you with some key recommendations to show you that no longer should women not be at the table and serving the menu. We want to be able to use the comparative advantage, the resiliency that Madeleine Albright so profoundly and eloquently referred to bring to the table as we participate in post-COVID preparedness and positioning. We need to build on the gains of the past 25 years after Beijing through our ability to mobilize and organize. Why is it that when we have a political season, the women are called upon to mobilize and organize, and yet they are left out of the key positions? So you will hear people talking about the new normal. I would like to inform you, dear friends, that the new normal is women's normal. Women will bring to the table what is second nature. They will bring to the table what they are wired for. Take the bedroom and the boardroom tactics. We will amplify our voices and make our voices very clear in the spheres of decision making. Civil society continues to fill the gaps. Right now, there's a call for a global treaty, for example, to end violence against women and girls. That's going to look at laws, that's going to make sure that first-line responders are trained so that doctors, physicians like myself can recognize issues around violence, including mental health. We need to be able to ensure that we look to our women in the communities who know exactly how the palliatives should be distributed, and yet they are left out of the conversation. We need to ensure that there are violence prevention messages to the men. I want to share very quickly an initiative that's used by the Medical Women's Association to which I belong. Very easily, we break down highfalutin medical language. We use women as an entry point because women are the bearers, the rearers, the carers. If they hold important life-saving health information, socio-economic information, leadership information, they can bring that to their entire family. For too long, we have been talking about the hands that rock the cradle, rule the world. You have leaders, male leaders, who will tell you, I am a leader today because of my mother. The same women who are rocking those cradles and making the men the leaders should be able to rock the cradle and also make the women the leaders. Finally, under the auspices of the Women Leadership Institute, the word institute is hugely important. It's talking about institutionalizing a lot of what I have sounded the keynote about. How can we train women to take up those leadership positions for leadership that is second nature in our households and in our informal settings to be transported to the formal settings? Together, my dear friends, let us weave that tapestry of the whole of society approach as we stand in preparedness for the post-COVID era. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eleanor. I just want to assure you that if we were not having this program via Zoom, the sound of the applause right now that you would be hearing would have been resonating through the whole building. That was awesome. Thank you very much. And I'm sure everybody that listened to you shares the same sentiment. I particularly appreciate how you've laid out our topic by highlighting very practical examples of what we mean when we say women's leadership awakens in times of crisis. I thank you for taking us through that historical journey and setting the tone for the conversation that we're about to have. I think this is a good time to have the other panelists contribute to what you have laid the foundation of for us now. So I will call on our first panelist to add on, Mrs. Margaret Bango, if we can unmute her so we can hear from her. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Somachi. Good afternoon to all the panelists and the listeners at home. And thank you very, very much, Dr. Eleanor, for setting the pace. We have unsung heroes in women leaders. Where are we now? In Africa and world, women and youth constitute about, whenever poverty is spoken about in the news, they show women and children. As we guide our children on how to navigate the processes and challenges of life, we need to prepare them for all eventualities. The how is The how is we must nurture their intrinsic leadership skills, and this will help them to deal with any eventuality. We need to prepare them for the eventuality of being a leader now and be ready for the future, just like how royalty is being groomed. Leadership is instinct, is very intrinsic. Upbringing and exposure triggers the leadership in us. So as the leaders that we are, we should be mindful that as we are standing on the shoulders of the leaders before us, as Dr. Eleanor has said. So it's for us now to provide our shoulders to put the coming generation the shoulder to stand on to face their eventualities. What is the trigger? Our unsung heroes of the women in leadership had triggers, women oppression. What is the trigger now in our time as we are speaking? Coronavirus should be the main trigger because it knows no gender, it knows no race, it knows no status. This should be the ideal eventuality for us, especially in Africa. The ambassador actually touched on the fact that some of the countries that are managing to deal with Corona are women. But now what was their trigger? Their trigger to take the leadership out of them. I'll just mention two. Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel is a scientist. What made her be who she is now? It was the fall of the Berlin Wall. She got so frightened that people are going to be coming from West Germany and East Germany to come and take the jobs that they have, to come and infiltrate their economy. That was her trigger to leadership. And we take the Singapore leader, Halima. Halima comes from a very disadvantaged family. Her passion was the social and family development. That was the trigger that actually encouraged her to take leadership, and she became the leader of Singapore. And as we know, besides being there with the coronavirus, Singapore is very, very strong on their economy and is very strong on SMMEs as well. What are we taking from this as African leadership, as African women? We need to change this picture that most of the media is putting out there, that our children are hungry, the women are being abused. They sing the things that hurt us most. So how do we start there to eradicate that? We need to leave a legacy to our children. They should look forward to being a normal child. They should be able to be out there and play. How do we do that? We need, moving forward, because of coronavirus, the statistics are showing that children are not that much affected. Now, we should start supporting early childhood development, because from that early childhood development, we've got to get a lot of leaders there. They will. That will be the ones post-corona, because we would have nurtured that leadership within them. That is the how of now. The socio part is we need, as women leaders, to reach out to those women who are emotionally and mentally abused. We need to provide a healing environment so that as we navigate ourselves out of this corona pandemic, it's not going to be over 2 months, it's going to be a process. We should reach out to those women who are really reaching out to be helped. Most of them, you'll find that they've got that leadership in them. Let's help them to trigger, to bring out the leadership in them, which is suppressed by what they are being exposed to due to poverty, due to having a challenge on how do you look after your children. Economically, the African Union is trying its utmost best. We should not leave the leadership, economic leadership, to our government of the day. As women leaders, we have our part to play as well. In June 2015, the AU established COMESA, which is the Common Market for African States. That was the launch of Africa Free Trade, which is going to be activated before the end of the year. COMESA and SADC and Eastern African communities, together with ECOWAS, they signed that tripartite agreement. Now, how do we help the women to take the leadership out of them? They need something to trigger them. We need to train them to be entrepreneurs. We need to get them ready to run profitable business, to be import and export ready, because we are talking about Africa is going to be open for business. So when we leave, can we reach out to those women, especially in the rural and in the townships, whereby they are struggling to fend for themselves? Let's extend an arm. Let's give them a training, a skills development. The youth should be given vocational training so that they should be running with their mothers and the community to run profitable businesses, so that another trigger is going to come to Africa, which is Africa is open for business. So we owe it to ourselves to do it now during the coronavirus, whereby we need to put systems together on how to make the African continent a better place post-corona. Thank you very much for listening, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bango. Sorry, I don't have to be the only one giving everybody the applause that they deserve. So just bear with me. Thank you very much for your contribution. I like where we're heading with the conversation, from starting with the historical view, but now you have touched on the fact that the younger generation needs to be nurtured. There needs to be a stronger sense of community, so that hunger, the trigger is added to the natural instinct that women have to lead, but we do need to give them shoulders to stand on. We need to build on that natural instinct, which is part of what the vision of the WLI seeks to achieve. So thank you very much for that, and getting more women ready to step up and take action with Corona, because this is our new normal, like you said. I will follow up your contribution by calling on Mrs. Doreen to participate with us and give us her take on the topic.
Thank you very much, moderator. And thanks, WL, for this opportunity. I must also apologize for late participation in terms of joining. I think there was some technical problems, so I missed quite a bit on the keynote. But I'd like to come in from where Margaret left off, but this time use my country as a case study, and I hope the issues I bring out will be relevant. I want to start, first of all, quoting my president, His Excellency President Akufo-Addo of Ghana. He once said, and I quote, "More women in decision-making aids faster socio-economic gains." With this in mind, and also a policy that we have in Ghana from most of the manifestos of the political parties, that at least 40% of women should be appointed into decision-making positions. He has gone ahead and appointed quite a number of women, in all these positions, ministerial, deputy ministerial, CEOs. But key amongst these appointments, and even what is relevant for today, COVID today. The Minister for Local Government and Rural Development, Gender, Children and Social Protection, Sanitation and Water, Communications, Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration, Tourism and Creative Arts, and then also a number of CEOs have been appointed at the metropolitan and municipal authorities level under the Ministry of Local Government. And then we have the Ghana Shippers Authority, the National Board for Small Scale and Medium Enterprises, and the Ghana Export Promotion Council. The beauty of this is that all these women, whom I will refer to as natural logisticians, since women have this divine gifts, these women, together with their male counterparts, have and continue to champion various pragmatic interventions, such as the coronavirus alleviation program, whose objective is to protect households and livelihoods, especially the vulnerable in society, and then to clean and fumigate communities, especially traditional markets, places where we sell food, provide potable water, support micro, small, and medium-sized businesses, minimize job losses, and source additional funding for promotion of industries to shore up and expand industrial output for domestic consumption and exports. In fact, some female garment manufacturers have already started manufacturing PPEs, personal protective equipment for the COVID season. That is face masks, head covers, surgical scrubs and gowns for domestic consumption, and have even started exporting some to our neighboring countries. Some are also in pharmaceuticals, have started producing and exporting. In the past, we used to import almost everything, from the East, including pharmaceuticals. But now with this season, and I'm happy to know that a lot of women who used to be in the business of importing, traveling all the way to the Far East, are now changing their game and starting producing here. We even have some of the men also supporting those who produce alcoholic beverages. They have changed and are producing sanitizers. Now, for the economy and what is happening, the experiences we are going through with the lockdowns, no more imports, we need all to be domesticated, let me put it that way. One opportunity I see for women, especially the traders, is the onset of the African Free Continental Trade Area, which will come into force in July 2020. Fortunately, Ghana is hosting the Secretariat. And we're hoping that with this, the women in Africa, especially the big time traders on the China route and the Far East, should now think about doing business here in Africa, as we have all the modes of transport to move their goods or merchandise with this liberalized facilitation regimes. They also, in the supply chain business, especially now, the business that's flourishing in Ghana is the food business. So we're hoping that if people get by women from the farming, packaging, storage, warehousing, marketing, even local, and then for exports, these are opportunities for women to get into industry now and be useful. Tourism has been hit, even though that's also another section where we have a lot of female entrepreneurs. But the signals for us now is that we can no longer depend on international tourist traffic. We have to look at the domestic market and even possibly the regional markets where people can travel from, let's say, Ghana to Togo or to Nigeria by road. That's easy for us instead of going by air, because now all airports are closed. Only cargo business is doing well now. We never know when the airports are going to open for tourism to flourish again. At the political front, as I mentioned already, in Ghana, we are striving that at least 40% women should be in the key decision-making positions. But my prayer is that women all over, especially in Africa, will also give this necessary support for women who will be in those positions if they're so appointed, so that we can be able to make a mark at the place. The ministerial positions that I mentioned earlier on, you notice that these are sectors where you will need the woman because of the innate qualities of women caring. You know, women care about the people. It's like what you do at home, you're taking out in the community or at a national level. So it's my hope that some of these ministries in all areas will be by women because they understand the business of caring. And since again we are competing with our men, it's important that we sustain institutional capacity building programs for our women to enable them to compete favorably with our men, you know, at the job sectors. So for the moment, this is a contribution I want to make, that now is the time for women in Africa to rise, take up the strings, you know, and pull together, because we should be able to take control. Like the guest speaker, keynote address speaker said, I think I heard earlier on, we have women who are presidents in other countries. Africa will now have one more after Ethiopia and then Sierra Leone. So we should be able to have more and to take over. I'm looking at the Ambassador Kemes, you know, to take the lead in this regard. Thank you.
Any reaction, Ambassador Kema, to that? No, sorry, 1 second, you need to be unmuted.
Working on it. This is a platform. We're networking, and having heard the Ghanaian experience, and I've seen some Nigerian men log on to this program, I think we're going to propagate it. We're going to go around the continent, and we're getting somewhere.
Great, great.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Ms. Doreen. Thank you for highlighting the importance of having more women in decision-making positions, and also the need to be resourceful so that you can adapt and navigate through a crisis. I thank you for your contribution, and I owe you your applause. There we go. I will move on to the next panelist. You're welcome. I want to ask that we keep our contributions a little bit shorter so that we can get through the program quickly and still have time for some questions at the end. So I will call on Mrs. Amuli Olani.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me, Wura? Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Kema, for this opportunity to, you know, participate and also learn from such, you know, an array of intelligent women who have, you know, gone beyond us. My name is Angali. I'm the founder of Air Women Development, and I am very focused on young women and girls thinking about more decision-making positions and attaining leadership. And for me, this is quite critical at this point in time. So that I can keep to the time that Wura has set, I will just quickly dive into it. So for me, there has been a miseducation of who a leader is. And there has also been a miseducation of what qualities a leader can bring to the table, or what qualities leaders possess. So before now, you know, we've always seen that when you're looking at leadership, you're strictly looking at men. If you're looking at leadership characteristics, you're looking at men. And I often like to, say this when I'm, having some of my conversations with young women. And then, the first test is if you close your eyes, our participants can try and, do that short 2-second exercise. If you close your eyes right now, and I ask you, who is a leader? 9 out of 10 times, the picture that comes into your mind will be that of a man. Maybe some people might think about women, but initial thought that comes into your mind is that of a man. So what I find is that the miseducation of us has created unconscious biases in all of us. Now, this unconscious biases has trickled down to how you and I view leadership positions, as well as how we approach leadership. But thankfully, like, Dr. Kema and Dr. Eleanor has said, thank you for that keynote speech, by the way, they have been able to tell, they've shared with all of us some of the countries in this particular pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, who have worked to flatten the curve. And you know that the women who are leading, the people who are leading, the leaders, the leaders who are leading these countries are women. And I must add here that the youngest of the prime ministers for these countries is 34 years old. In fact, what I wanted to say was that the youngest is below 40, but I know that Angela Merkel is above 40. So we have prime ministers between the ages of 34 and 49, leading, the countries, Finland, New Zealand, Iceland, and they have flattened the curve and they're women. So what does that tell us? It's interesting that, the leadership qualities that women have naturally are actually the ones that are seen common to these prime ministers, these women who have led their countries out of the pandemic. And in my research, I discovered that there are a few characteristics that are common with these women. Natural characteristics that come with them, just like one of our, very great panel speakers has said. First is empathy. Second is initiative. Third is decision-making. These are key critical leadership skills that are common to these prime ministers who are women who have flattened the curve in their countries. Leadership skills that women have naturally. And I'm saving the best for last. Communication. Now, where I'm born in Nigeria, women, isn't it amazing that when we talk too much, it is actually a skill, communication skills. So in some climes when you talk, they say you are nagging too much. But hey, people like New Zealand Prime Minister has used communication skills, talking every day from her living room, communicating to her country every day with empathy and decision-making to her citizens. They were able to listen to her and the curve has been flattened. Now I have to say that Nigeria still remains a paradox because I do not think that we are devoid of quality, and professional women. I do not think that we don't have qualified women in our country. However, it's a paradox because I'm borrowing from what Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala said in her book, Fighting Corruption is Dangerous. She said, it remains a paradox because we have qualified women, but we have abysmal representation in leadership from a political point of view. Now, if you come to where we are today, I am almost addicted to listening to the Presidential Task Force of Nigeria every day, 5 o'clock. And I'm always counting from when the Presidential Task Force was inaugurated, 12 members, only one woman. Till today, when I'm still speaking to you, unless I log in at 5 o'clock and they have changed the amount of women on that Presidential Task Force, it is still the same. Now, this is arguably a global issue because I found out that even USA and UK have the same issues of Presidential Task Force not being well represented, zero inclusivity. Now, women in leadership has been seen to be auxiliary. now, because you can see that 70% of the women in the front lines, the 70% of people in the front line are women. So women are able to care, women are able to look after a population. Why is that not transitioning to being in the positions and places of leadership? Why can't it be transition? But now it has to, because the theme for today is what we can do now and after COVID. Women have done things like flattening the curve. So you and I should be proud and impressed by what other women have done. What are you and I going to do now? It is very critical for us right now to begin to know and think that, number one, change your miseducation. Number two, solve the unconscious bias. And I would like to close, I'd like to end my statement by talking about the gender-based violence that exists in all strata of society. Gender-based violence is real, it's happening, and is more pronounced during the lockdown. However, I feel like if it is that I see a representation of a woman in the presidential task force today, I believe that she is in a position to discuss what is going on with women, to give us better information. When a woman is, like the saying goes, wear my shoe and you know how it hurts me. Nobody is able to represent us women than we women ourselves. And for young women, we need to start coming on the table and having conversations that matter to build our nation. Because at the end of the day, the older women on the table will need to hand over the baton. You and I need to be ready to take on the baton they're handing over and continue the fight for women to have equality in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Anguli, for that passionate and insightful presentation you just gave. That was really exciting and really powerful. And I just wanted to add that I completely agree with everything that you have laid out. And it's the issue of the representation that we see and the lack of the women representation that continues to feed the unconscious bias and what leadership is to young women. But that's why we have platforms and, you know, like the Women's Leadership Institute and your Air Women Development Center to continue to encourage young women to learn and to shift mindset so that we can change these representations and start to fight these biases. So thank you very much for contributing that to the conversation. I want to remind people, our audience, to write down your questions. If you have questions for any of the panelists that you're listening to as you go by, please write in the chat box. And go through as many as we can towards the end of the session. Our next speaker is Professor Oti, Professor Nena Oti. I'll hand over to you now. Do we still have Professor Oti on?
I'm here. Am I on now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Thank you very much, and good evening, beautiful ladies. I want to start by first thanking the organizer of this interactive dialogue, and in the person of Ambassador Dr. Mrs. Kema Chikwe, our Amazon, who has not only been someone to emulate and an example for all women, for all times, but has decided to use her experience to provide opportunity for others. And so it's such an honor to participate in this dialogue. Let me start with the first question. I'm a professor, I'm a teacher, so I'll try to go in a sequential manner. Point one, why are countries headed by women perform better in the containment of COVID than other countries? In addition to everything else said, may I add a few others, like one, these women are very competent to become the head of state of your country. My, you have to be something else. They are qualified, they are courageous, they lead with their hearts, not just their heads. And they put human lives above politics. They are not thinking about the next election. They are thinking about saving human lives. These women are fighters. They are fearless. And like Margaret Thatcher said, you want something talked about? Hand it over to the men. You want problem solved? You give it to women. So the world has seen how the current world order will be different when we have more women in charge. Can you imagine what will have happened if the 300 plus, 200 plus, depending on how you count nations, countries were headed 50% by women, we will have put coronavirus behind us. Number two, what is required of society? The time has come to shift away from paying lip service to empowerment and begin the doing. This is the time to make gender equality a reality. Not just something we see in papers, we see in charters, something we discuss at conferences. The time is now. In fact, yesterday. How can we achieve gender equality? By giving women the master key that will unlock opportunities for women everywhere. Number one, education. It's education, education, education. Number two, access to resources. Number three, experience. Number four, society, remove all barriers. Number five, networking. My number 3 point, lessons learned from COVID-19. Number one, it has exposed the deep fractures in the current world order, and the world cannot continue with business as is. The world is one big family. Everybody, Wuhan has become a household word. I didn't know about Wuhan. Why? What started in one part of the world, in a short space of time, within 2 months, it spread everywhere and brought the world to its knees. And what else has it shown? We've learned firsthand the consequences of inequalities in societies. Poverty, poor health, and poor well-being. Financial insecurities, inequalities in society, because the underdogs are the most affected. Isn't it rather sad that the so-called elites are the ones who will travel to Germany, whichever country, who knows? And then you come back, you bring back an invisible virus, and you inflict your driver, your cook, who have no access to healthcare. And so, what will the new, number 4, will the new world order look like? What does it demand? 50-50 representation in all spheres of life, but in particular, in governance, in leadership, CEO positions, where policies are made, where policies are implemented. We need a voice. I had also noted what the media speaker before me had said, and what a sad scenario it is, that in the presidential task force, women are absent, and yet, like the Chinese would say, women hold up 50% of the sky. How can all men take a decision that will take care of all our needs? Who will put the voice that will take care of children? Who will represent our children? Who represents our needs? Who will speak for us? We have a long way to go. And so women, I call upon us women. Women, support women. Vote for women. Use your franchise well. If all the women in Nigeria, for example, we say in the next election we won't vote for any male, we will vote for our women. We have enough competent women. We will contribute even our 1 naira in our numbers. We will raise funds to support qualified women. Things will change. What do you think will happen when we begin to have female presidents, female vice presidents, 30 female governors, nay, 15 even female governors, 50 senators, 400 and something in the House of Representatives? The dialogue will change, the outcome will change, and the impact will be different. And finally, and on a lighter note, I'm so amused that the lockdown means that men have been locked down in a home, our domain and our forte. So if we've made it comfortable, they will be comfortable. No more running away to clubs and to their offices. They are caught up with us. beautiful women and sisters. I hope we'll be making it fun for all of them. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Professor Oti. Thank you for that take on the lockdown. And thank you so much for your contribution. Especially the fact that you cannot move the whole society forward and progress if you're only listening to 50%. So thank you for that contribution. Please keep leaving your comments or your questions in the chat box. We will take our participants all the way from Zambia now. This is Wumeka Wolumiaya. If you're on there, we'll pass over to you, we'll hand over to you now to join us.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. It's a rare privilege and honor to be part of this discussion this evening. Oh, by the way, it's 18 hours in Zambia. It's 6 p.m. It has been a long day. I'll pick one from one item which I felt was so much realistic and to the point from the keynote speaker, Madam Elena, when she mentioned that why is it that in political scenarios you would find that political organizers would engage women to organize for political rallies and ensure that they put everyone together. That's a big challenge, and I think it's something which we see even here in Zambia when there are political groupings or meetings to be done. They will look for women to organize people. So why are they looking for women? And I take it from all the previous speakers, what they have elaborated. I've learned a lot. I've enjoyed the discussion. But for me, I'll look at a woman as a transformational leader. Why is a woman a transformational leader? I think a woman empowers her followers to be able to do the best in whatever they are doing. And a woman is a strong role model with high values, you know, and the fact that a woman has got a house, has got a home, has got a family, you would find that they take that, you know, leadership from the family level to where they are operating from. So a woman will always empower their followers. They will always be a strong model with high values. And a woman, I feel, creates a vision. You know, where there's a woman, there's a vision, you would find that people are able to follow, you know, step by step, because there's a vision and the woman leads with that vision. And the other thing is that a transformational leader who is a woman is a game changer. She is an agent of change. You see, so in this time of COVID-19, we are faced with a new normal. And from our keynote speaker, she mentioned to say, the new normal is a new woman normal. So we as women, we have the ability, we have what it takes to lead, you know, the masses, to lead in organizations because of who we are. In Zambia, we have Ministry of Gender. This was launched in 2012 by our late, President Michael Chilufya-Sata, may he so rest in peace. He had so much faith in a woman because he was a political vampire. He was able to, you know, to coordinate and be able to bring women, and he managed to see the power that lied in the women. And that's why when he came into power, he decided that there should be Ministry of Gender. So in terms of leadership policies in our country like Zambia, we have everything set and put. But what is it that we as women should do? Because you can have the policies, but we need to stand out and be able to take up the lead. And this can only be done when we are able to have the education that is required to be influential. So as women, my take in this is that women are transformational leaders. Where they are, they transform systems. Where they are, they are able to move mountains. And where they are able to shake. And in this COVID-19, we have to be the new women. It requires us to change the new normal. From what we knew, now we have to change. We have to change. And what we should do, like as we move forward in changing, is to empower our fellow women. I get serious kudos from Madam Ambassador Dr. Kema Chiko. She's my mentor. I look up to her and see her where she, how much she has attained and what she has done and what she's able to do. And when I look at her, I look at myself and say, even me, I can attain that because I've got a mentor who has attained so much. So without wasting much time, I would just end by saying that women, they say women, when you educate a woman, you educate the community. And as women, we are able to change things because a woman looks beyond herself. She moves from herself to others. So we are able to give. And with that, I would say thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Walumenia. Thank you. I think from your presentation, I've gotten my new mantra for the rest of the year, which is that women are game changers, moving mountains and shaking things wherever they are. So I'll remember that. Thank you for sharing with us. I want to call our final panelist so that we can hear from her before we take any questions that you may have. Hope you're still putting your questions in the chat box. I will now call on Mrs. Folake Soji George. If you're on and you can hear us, just say something so I can check that we're all hearing you.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm raising my hand. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. I can hear you too, so you can go ahead and talk to us.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here, and I want to say that I've benefited a lot from the panelists, especially from the keynote speaker. She's very apt in her paper deliverance, and I've enjoyed it, and it has enhanced me somehow. And I want to thank Ambassador Kema Chikwe. She has shown that she's the leader, she's a woman of valor. I want to thank her for putting this together and for inviting and involving women, not only in Nigeria. We have other women from other African countries that are here, and the impact that they will get here will be translated also into their country, where we have more women come into participation and look for how to train up younger women into taking position of leadership in the near future. I know right from inception, right from the inception of the world, when God created Eve, she created her as an helpmate. And she has been apart from being a mother, she has taken charge and has taken care of all the needed things that she needs to do. And that is why we have seen that God has created women to be multitasking. All over the world, men that are also in leadership, understand this virtue that women have, and they know when you see any successful man, they tell you the impact of the woman by their side, that the contributions that they have made. And, you know, it puzzled me when I look at formation in terms of having women in leadership, especially in Africa, that it has become a problem for them to have women participation in leadership. But they know, especially in the political arena, that during their campaign, they don't look for men to come to their side. They knew that it's the woman that will come out, talk to other women, talk to men, dance, cheer them up, cheer them up, do all the necessary to get them into position of power. And when that is done, they leave us to our fate. And I don't want to believe that they want to be using us and dumping us. And for that, I've made up my mind and I've been advocating. And I know that someone of the caliber of Ambassador Kema Chikwe and all the notable women that we have on this platform will help us, you know, drum it out to other women that now we have to support ourselves. We have women in the industry where I belong, in the maritime industry, that have proved themselves. We have them in Ajia Usman, that is the managing director of MPA. She has been forthcoming and she has been able to achieve a lot. So I want to use this platform to say that COVID-19 has shown us a way forward, a way of getting closely knitted to ourselves and encourage ourselves to move forward in this our future. Because women, we are the mother, we are the daughter, we are the sister, and we are the wife. God has blessed us with multitasking. And I know that with that passion, if we use that passion that we are using to multitask our individual life, if we are allowed to take it to the world, into the society where we belong, especially here in Nigeria, we'll have a better future. You can see, as the other panelist, Mrs. Arnoli, said, you have, I can't even remember that we have the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs as the representation of women in the presidential task force on this COVID, because our number is so inconsequential. Hardly can she say anything really much to stand forth for the women folk in the society. And I don't know why anytime we have this COVID thing is something that we need more women to be on the platform, because I think when we have them there, we will have more women that the palliative, we would have gone far if she was not the only one on that team representing the women folk. So I want to say now that what we need to do post-COVID is, right from now we have had this platform going, we should do a lot of training and showcase business ventures that women can tag into to help them economically after COVID, because you know that women as mothers, they have the home to take care of. They will not allow their children to go to bed with hunger. So whatever business that they want to do, businesses that have sprung up in the course of this COVID, especially in the clothing industry where we have this face mask, we have a lot of women that have done that and have been able to make some, you know, resources for themselves. I want us to also do training for women to see that those lines of business, since we are not sure when international line will be open, we can use this line of business in Africa to support ourselves, since we don't need much of air transportation. We can do road transportation for clothing industry, for the food industry, to at least get ourselves up and encourage and enhance our finances, especially. That is what I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Folake Soji George. I thank you for that contribution. You actually answered one of the questions that somebody had on here, which was around how do we...
I don't explain Madam Result.
Sorry, we can just mute, okay. So the question was around how we can encourage women who have lost their jobs or their income due to the COVID situation. and you've talked about the organizations giving more training, more vocational training to help women get involved in other things that they can use to go into business. So we'll put on the information. I would encourage people to follow up on the WLI and other foundations or platforms that our speakers have presented on here to see when things like trainings and vocational boosting training will be rolled out so that people can take advantage of them. Thank you. Thank you so much. I also want to give another round of applause to all our panelists. We've heard from everyone now. So I will take this and pass on to our host, Ambassador Kema Chikwe, to just give us a few remarks concerning the topic that we've discussed. But there is also a question that you have been asked, which is around the pitiful level of gender mainstreaming in Nigeria. Before I pass over to Ambassador Chikwe, I just want to say to all the panelists, the reactions from our audience collectively, if you're not able to read the chat box, is that a lot of people have been really inspired. A lot of people have learned a lot through your speeches and contributions. A lot of people now have a hunger to say what next and how do we get involved. So I thank you for stirring something up in a lot of our listeners, and we need to communicate on how to keep this conversation going. So Ambassador Chikwe, if you can just wrap up for us and also answer the question of how we tackle gender mainstreaming in Nigeria. Thank you.
She's muted.
Unmute. We need to unmute her. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Eleanor, and the panelists. I think you've done justice to this program. Well, about mainstreaming in Nigeria, if you look at where we were and where we're coming from and where we are today, I think we have made some progress. But the truth is that when I look at the women in Nigeria and how far they have come in education, in industry, in enterprise, and everything, and I ask myself, why are we holding back? We are not speaking out enough or bulldozing our way into the system. We have seen that in Nigeria, political system seems to be power. So if you have to get that power, you must have your way around it. Everybody doesn't have to be a politician, but everybody has a role to play in promoting leadership for women. So all I can say is that we continue in the Institute to provide the environment to motivate women to take on leadership in this country and try to mainstream. We have to be consistent. I mean, I'm very, very enthused that Ghana has the policy of 40% and they are implementing, our neighbors. We have, I think we tried to pass the 36%. It's so difficult in our National Assembly. And we're all keeping quiet. And we have so many educated, successful Nigerian women. So we have to continue networking, continue pushing. That's the only way we can do it. Believe in ourselves, have the self-confidence. Now, when we see what women are doing in other countries, we ask ourselves, why can't we do it? Even in the rural areas, you see that women prefer to support men because they believe they have the resources. So we ourselves, we have to tone down on our values. In Nigeria, I noticed that women, our values are vain. Going to parties and weddings, good, but you wear diamond, uniform, you spend so much money in decking yourself up. Let us use some of that money to entice the electorate and get them to vote rightly. That's what I can say. But let me also say that this pandemic is no respecter of persons. I have a feeling that even the men are confused. I observed it myself that the presidential task force has only one woman, but everybody is keeping quiet because everything in Nigeria is politicized. If you make a constructive statement, it can be misconstrued to be political criticism, but it is not. So now that we have said it, after this platform, we're going to have a communique. We've spoken, the WLI is working in partnership with some media houses because we have to orchestrate the communique arising from this discussion today. We have to push on, we have to find our ways and strategize. And if some of you have to support what you're doing to get into the right ears, please, let's come together, let's work together and make sure that there is a change. This pandemic has told us that there's no difference between white and black, rich and poor. Everybody is worried because nobody knows the future. But the women, as I said earlier, they manage to construct situations that will adapt the families, the society towards the right direction. So that's what I can say about what you asked me, and then to wrap up.
Yes.
I hope I'm done with that.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I think our time is far spent now. We have, we started at 4 p.m., it's now 5:30. But if we have our keynote speaker is still on here, I have a couple of people who have put in questions around specific key strategies for re-engagement post-COVID-19. Ambassador Kema has already covered most of that, but I just wanted to take 2 more contributions from our panelists, our keynote speaker, if she's still here, to contribute to that.
Thank you very much. I mean, it has been provocative, it's been inspiring, and you know, I've read the messages on the chat box. The first thing we need to do practically is to make sure that we collate all this information that we have and get WLI. I think the conversation needs to continue. This is just the beginning, so that we can actually, you know, have a strong response. There are so many ideas coming from here. In fact, one of when Aunli mentioned, and she said, close your eyes and imagine, I quickly posted the fact that for 12 years, there was a female president in Finland. When the elections were coming along and there were male pictures on the billboard for politics, the 12-year-old children were asking their parents and saying, we didn't know that men could be presidents, because they had grown up for the first 12 years of their lives seeing only a female president. So it goes back to what I said earlier. The first school, the first place of learning is in the home. We are rocking that cradle. I have 4 granddaughters, and already the 3 that can speak will stand up and say, I'm beautiful, I'm powerful, and I'm strong. Because I've started to inculcate in them that belief that they can be anything that they want to be. So when somebody approached my granddaughter and said, oh, Princess so-and-so, she quickly said, but I'm a princess myself. So as we are rocking that cradle and we are bringing in the next generation, how are mothers, sisters, aunties in the home inculcating? And I agree with Professor Oti, it's education, 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 but it is formal and informal education. How are we making women believe in themselves so that when it comes to the political sphere, when it comes, just like Madame Soji George has said, heading the Nigeria ports, let the women believe that they can lead. Having said that, I'll end with very quickly with a story. I run an organization for widows in my village, and we had a well-articulated system from the US on saving, what we called the Widows Community Bank. These women had their own strategy. They jettisoned the one from America, and everyone was amazed at how these widows instituted a savings scheme, instituted fines amongst themselves. And that's why I said, when we have the government, even if we just have the one lady in the humanitarian Ministry for Humanitarian, she can ask the women right there in the community, how does it work for you? And how it works in Kaura Namoda might not be how it works in Oba, or how it works in another village in the Southwest. They can tell you their own system of what will work for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much for that, Dr. Eleanor. I think what you said is spot on. I just wanted to read out one of the comments that we have here, which relates to what you were saying from Dr. Ifewa Wapesi, the power of positive affirmation and which allows women to be the best version of themselves. And this can happen according to how, unless they imbibe the principle, the Kanai principle, which is constant and never-ending improvement. So it's to keep on improving yourself and, you know, speaking positively and affirming your situation in a positive light so that you can perform and be the best version of yourself that you can be constantly. So on that note, I want to thank everybody for participating, for taking out the time to be with us, for our panelists, for the engaging presentations that they gave, and for inspiring all of us, for our audience, for respecting all our mute and unmute rules, and participating energetically in the comment section. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you to our keynote speaker for setting this program in motion in such a powerful manner. And most especially, thank you to our host, Ambassador Kema Chikwe, for imagining this program and putting it all together and bringing us here today to share and learn and grow. And we would like to hear our closing statements from the program director so we can engage with the Institute and follow up when necessary. Thank you all very much for your time.
Hello, everyone. And again, greetings from the Women Leadership Institute. This has been an absolutely amazing event. This is actually our first Zoom meeting given the pandemic, and it went very well. So I can assure you that you would definitely be hearing more from us at the Women Leadership Institute. We are reading your comments. There are some questions, some follow-ups, and I'd like to give you our website address so you can learn more about the Institute and keep in touch with us. Our website is www.womenli.org. Alternatively, you can send me an email, somachi@gmail.com, and we can continue any conversation that you have or any questions or any concerns. I would like to thank our founder, Ambassador Dr. Kema Chikwe. Her insight and vision has been an amazing gift to African women. We have women from all over the continent, from the UK, from Canada, from the United States on the platform today, and this is what we're working on, building the network of women leaders across the world to make the world a better place and create positive impact. I would also like to thank our keynote speaker. She is such an amazing woman. Thank you, Dr. Eleanor. And thank you to all our panelists. Thank you for working with us. This program was planned in about 10 days, but look at what women can do. I don't think men can do it this well. They will need like 2 months to do it. The men are shaking their heads. I know that it takes a man like 6 months to put this together, but the women, we did it, and we did it greatly. So thank you to all our panelists, and thank you to all the men, because that's the whole idea of gender. We're not just women talking, we're talking with men on how we can work together to make the world a better place. And finally, I would like to thank our moderator, Mrs. Wura Tunde Anjos. She has done such an amazing job today. It's not easy managing a Zoom conversation, as you all know, but Wura has done exceptionally well. Everyone was heard perfectly, and the conversation went smoothly. And we also have NTA here and other news networks from across the continent, and we'd like to thank them. And like the founder said, don't quote us out of context, and hope that you report our news and our communique just as we said it. God bless everyone. You'll be hearing more from the Women Leadership Institute. Have a wonderful day, and thank you. I'll be closing out the meeting now. Everybody's unmuted, so we can all say bye real quick. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. God
Bye,
bless.
everyone.
Everyone.
Thank you. Have an awesome afternoon. Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye.